Hello, I am here watching the ducks as sunset, and I wanted to say something. I wanted to react to the comments made by Chris Watts' parents. For one thing, there are three comments that disturbed me. One comment was, "We also lost a son. We also lost a son." Shh. We also lost a son. Okay, so let's think about this. I'm watching nature. I'm sitting here. I'm a free person. I'm able to sit and watch the ducks swim in the river and my dogs. This is called being free. You have a free choice. That's true. That is something that is part of being a free person. Your son is not a free person. He has lost his right to be a free person because he confessed to murdering his pregnant wife and his children. Now, Shannon Watts will never ever be able to see or feel anything or speak to anyone. And while you will eventually get visits, or you can talk to your son on the phone, or at least you know he's somewhere living, breathing, and there is hope for you to be able to talk to him. The family of Shannon Watts will never ever be able to speak to her. They can she will probably come up in their dreams and their thoughts. If you believe in angels, she's probably around them. They will feel her presence, her spirit, her great spirit. And so will her friends and everyone who has come to know her. But while you have a living son, they do not have a living daughter. Her life on earth has ended because of your son's violent action, which is why he is not a free man at the moment. Okay, that's the first comment. So you are not the same. A victim of violence and a violent person are not the same. The fact that he's in prison and she's dead, buried under the ground, does not make them equal at all in any way. In any way. He has lost his freedom. She has lost her life because of his choice. So please, take responsibility. This is one word that's missing from your vocabulary. Responsibility. Maybe you are not responsible for your son's actions. I don't know how you raised him and the value system. But when you actually do not show up for his wedding because you don't get along with his bride, it indicates a certain problem. Now, was Shannon Watts a violent criminal? Was she a drug addict? As far as I know, no. Did she harm anyone? As far as I know, no. Why in the world would you not show up for your son's wedding? His first wedding. It was her second wedding. I understand she was divorced. It's his first wedding, and his own family doesn't show up for his wedding. Well, that says something about your character, not his, at this point. Comment number 2. The father sits quietly, very much like his son, in the background, allowing the woman to take control, being the passive, aggressive, sitting in the background. And then he makes this comment, this passive aggressive comment, "Oh, well, you should have known her," smirking. What does that mean? That is very easy to understand as "you should have known her," if you had known her, as if hinting there's something wrong with her character. Is she here to defend herself? Not. And this leads to the third comment made by his mother. He should defend himself. Well, how could Shannon Watts defend herself, a pregnant woman defend herself from a strong man, a muscular, strong man? How was she able to defend herself? No. And not only were you not there to defend her then, you're not there to defend her now. You not only are you not defending her, you're attacking her, slandering her character when she's not alive to defend herself. She's not alive to defend herself. And as for her family, your message to her family is that you are the same? In which universe is the victim of a violent crime the same as the perpetrator, the person choosing to be violent? In which universe is that the same? No way, Jose. Now, let me refresh your memory. Your granddaughter, Sissy, turned 3 this summer. There's a video posted on YouTube of Shannon Waats, in blessed memory, may she rest in peace, showing up, surprising her daughter in a play group. You can see her sister Bella, you can see Sissy, but you don't see her grandparents. She was in the same state. She was in North Carolina. It's your granddaughter's 3rd birthday. Why wouldn't she show up? Yes, that was her last birthday, by the way. Do you feel guilt for anything? So she was a horrible person. Why is she at the birthday? Not your son did not show up for the birthday. Let's refresh the memory. What we know, all of us, and that means not only you. We know that your son was meanwhile hitting on a coworker. Yes, much younger than him, and lying to her, telling her he's in the end of a divorce process. Okay, so his daughter just had a 3rd birthday. Instead of going over there, flying over there, surprising his daughter, he's dating a woman, lying to her, telling her he is a single man in the process of divorce, that he's at the end of the process of divorce. So how do you expect your son to defend himself? He lied time after time. He lied to the police. He made up a story that his wife and children left him. Meanwhile, their bodies are decomposing in an oil tank. This is how much you love your grandchildren. You want a person who's placed the bodies of your flesh and blood, your grandchildren, yes, in a tank of oil. You want him to defend himself. You want him to get off so he can be a free man, because you're so sure he's innocent. He only murdered a pregnant woman. He only murdered your future grandson, what would have been your future grandson, and the mother of your grandchildren. He only murdered them. He did not murder the children. And of course, it's very likely that a woman who's dedicated to her children is the likely suspect, not a man who lied time after time after time. Now, you said he had a great career as an auto mechanic, and then he met Shannon Waats. Well, let's examine the facts. How much does an auto mechanic earn? I don't know, but he had a job in an oil company. He was making a lot of money. And he was traveling to all sorts of beautiful vacation places, not because of money he was earning, but because of a career his wife built, selling products online. Not only did she build a career, she was very successful. Not only was she sick, ill, but she managed to have children when it's very difficult for a person with her sort of diagnosis to become pregnant. She became pregnant. She raised her children. She took care of her children. Yes? And she was the only one present on their 3rd birthday party of this CC. No, you were not there. You didn't show up for her wedding. You didn't show up for the birthday of your granddaughter. And you say that your son is normal? How can he be normal when his family has such complicated relationships with their grandchildren and the mother of the grandchildren? And the way you just sit there silent, and then you smirk and you speak with the same voice as your son, Mr. Waats, and you say, oh, well, you should have known her. You should have known her. Well, I think a lot of us did come to know her through her YouTube videos, and we came to know a lovely, lovely woman who spoke from her heart. We heard her teacher give a character reference, saying what a wonderful child she was in school, how she overcame bullying, how she overcame troubles, how she appreciated what a lovely person she was, what a lovely letter she wrote him. She was a devoted mother. We know that from her friends, from her neighbors, from everyone who came in contact with her. And your son, what do we know about your son? Who you claim is a victim, who you claim has to defend himself. Who is attacking your son? Your son who attacked a pregnant woman, who confessed to attacking a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old child. Yes, what do we know about your son? He went online and met for casual relations with men and women. He went to his workplace instead of making sure he has a job. Instead of working on his career, he had a very bad report as a worker. He was showing up late for work. And he was busy having relationships with workers and lying to women and presenting himself as a man at the end of his divorce process. This we know about him. How many friends did he actually have? I haven't heard anyone saying what a wonderful man he is. People did say that he fixed their cars, but now we know why, because he was a car mechanic and he loved doing that. But being a car mechanic, unfortunately, is not as high paying as working in an oil company. So maybe he didn't want to work in it. Is he an adult at 33? You present him, you look at pictures of him at school when he was, in middle school. Is he a child or is he an adult? Is he a father of children or is he a single man? Because you seem to be confused as much as him. And you say that the victim of a violent crime is the same as a man who murdered his pregnant wife and also confessed to murdering his children. Why in the world would he not be guilty of murdering the children when he took these sweet girls and placed them in an oil, in a tank full of hot oil? Is that what you do to children that you love? Is that what you did to your children? I don't think so. You were pregnant with children. How would you have felt, Mrs. Waats? Yes, Mrs. Waats, mother of Chris Waats. How would you have felt when you were pregnant, when you were attacked violently? Had you been attacked? Had you been murdered? Had you known that the baby you're carrying will never ever see the day of light? Can you imagine how scared you must have been? Can you imagine the last minutes in the life of Shannon Waats? Can you imagine what it must have been like for her to know she's not only she's going to be dead, but that her children are dead and that her unborn son is going to be dead and never ever get to see life, never ever get to see ducks swimming in the lake, never ever getting to see the beautiful world. She was so full of love and joy. She enjoyed so much going on trips, seeing beautiful beaches, meeting people. She was full of enthusiasm and love. Something that I did not see in Chris Waats, who was just sitting there silent, not speaking, enjoying the fruit of her labor. So how dare you slander this woman? And I address this to people who can do this. I address people that are relatives to Shannon Waats. Can you please sue this family for slander? Can you please make it impossible for them to make public appearances slandering this beautiful woman that we all have come to know and love from her many, many videos? Yes, you can say it's an act. I don't think so. Showing up for your child's birthday is not an act. It shows dedication, working hard to make money for your family, to make sure they have vacations, that they have daycare, that they can be with other children and go to a beautiful program instead of hanging around the house, making sure the children get beautiful clothing, schooling, toys, trips. All these things were made possible thanks to Shannon Waats' hard-earned cash that she made online. I don't know how good she was with money, with handling money, but I do know that you worked pretty hard to have earned those vacations. She did say those trips were paid by the company. You don't send somebody on an all expense paid vacation unless they're a very good worker who achieved goals. So on behalf of all those who are watching those videos and are horrified by the words spoken about Shanann Waats, it's not only about Shanann Waats, it's about all women that are being slandered and being presented as deserving a violent end or violence. Nobody deserves violence. And let's get it very clear. Nobody deserves to be murdered. No one. Unless there are direct threat to your life, there is no way anyone deserves to be murdered. And as for those lies, why in the world would somebody who actually told her mother and co-workers that she and her husband are separating, why would he claimed, Chris Waats, that she murdered the children when she found out he wanted a separation. He's so bad at lying. It's so easy to decipher this lie. She already told people they're getting a divorce and they're separating. They're in the process of separating and divorcing. So why in the world would she have a fit and murder her children whom she loved dearly? So that lie is another lie that is so easy to expose as a lie. I don't know, but Chris Waats seemed to underestimate the intelligence of most of human beings, because it doesn't take a genius to figure out that he lied in every step of the way. Every step of the way, whether it was speaking to millions of people on television, saying his wife went and how he's looking forward to his wife and children coming back, when they were in an oil tank, when they were buried in the ground. And if you think it's normal, if you think you know the definition of what is normal, and you say, well, he was perfectly normal till he met her, if you're giving the responsibility of these horrific murders of toddlers and a pregnant woman to a man, to the pregnant woman and not to a man, oh, he was normal until he met her. Well, maybe you should look at yourself, look in the mirror. Listen to what you say on YouTube, how you speak about a victim of violence, how you disregard the feelings of a family that lost their daughter, their cousin, their friend, will never, ever, ever be able to speak to her and talk to her and see her ever, ever again, or the children. While you can always see the despicable excuse of a son you brought into this world and continue to excuse is horrific crimes. So look in the mirror, watch your YouTubes, and the only word I can say is, I hope one day you will finally feel shame, because God only knows you don't have one shred of decency. How can you raise a decent son when you have no empathy for a family whose daughter was murdered, whose grandchildren were brutally murdered? You say there were also your grandchildren, and yet you don't feel any empathy that this beautiful young woman has lost her life. As if being in prison for the rest of your life, or being buried in the ground and not being able to feel or see anything ever again, and decomposing is the same. Well, it's not. And if you do not know the difference, you probably don't know the difference between a lot of things. I recently saw an ad now of there being a ceremony for victims of all people that are dead. And that made a lot of people angry, because in this country, there are a lot of people that their children, their family relatives, their wives, their husbands, whatever, they are victims of violence of terrorists. Terrorists that targeted them just because they didn't feel they had the right to live. And all of a sudden, the family of these terrorists claim they're also victims because they were shut down by police or soldiers while murdering people, as if it's the same. Well, if you don't know the difference between a murderer and the victim of a murderer, you really should take a course in morality, and you should really take a course in empathy. I don't know how else to say it, but it seems to me quite basic that there is a difference between a victim of violence and a person who decides to act violently. Okay, well, could be a mental illness has caused this person to be violent, and yet, it is not the same as being the victim. Not, it's not. While one person may be the victim of his genes, it's still not the same to murder someone and to go to prison or to be dead because somebody murdered you. And I want to add my voice to all those wishing that Shannon Waats and her unborn child and her children, Bella and Cece, will get justice, and that the murderer who is responsible for their deaths will serve his sentence in prison, and that his family stops slandering the victim and adding salt to their wounds. And for the family of Shannon Watts, I want to add my voice in wishing you strength in these difficult times, and know that many good people around the world stand behind you 100%. Pray for your health and your sanity and your ability to recover from and heal from this horrible, horrific act of violence, and that you shall find a time when you'll remember the memories of your beloved daughter and grandchildren, and that you will know that so many people around the world send you their love and their prayers and are standing with you, and know that there is a right and there is a wrong, and we are all standing with you. And Shannon will never, ever be forgotten. She will be there for all of us, victims of violence, families of victims of violence. Around the world, she will be a shining light by which we will say no to domestic violence, no to violence against women and children. Be blessed. Peace, light, and love.